Hey everybody, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to take a look at a game that was released a little while back from Three Hairs Games called Lagoon. Now this is a game in which players are going to be directly competing against one another in order to try and alter the balance of the ecosystem of the game using their druids. They're going to have a kind of they call them Eldred Druids, and other druids that they're going to be moving around the board, trying to pick up various seeds, use the ability of the board, and then try and unravel particular tiles on the board, remove them from the game in order to try and alter the state, and earn points by the end. So real quick, why don't we take a look at what you're going to get inside of this box. We'll see how the game plays, and we'll come back at the end and get my opinions on Lagoon, Land of the Druids. So here you can see the components for Lagoon all set up for a 4-player game. Now this could theoretically be a 2-player game as well if I just remove 2 of the players. The only difference is that in a 4-player game, 2 of the players are playing on a team. So each player will have a partner in the game instead of being on their own. You can also play a 3-player game where each player plays for themselves, but I wouldn't recommend that, and we'll talk more about it at the end. So, the idea of this game is that each player is controlling a grouping of druids. I don't know what the correct wording is for a grouping of druids, but you're controlling a grouping of druids, and you're going to be playing out on this terrain that starts out on the board. You'll note that these terrains have 3 different colors. We have a yellow, a red, and a blue. And these are the 3 colors in the game, the 3 primary colors. The main idea of this game is that you're going to be trying to push one color towards being dominant in the board, be it yellow, red, or blue, and based on which one you choose, you're going to be trying to obviously degrade or unravel, in the case of the game, the other tiles in order to get points. You'll also be trying to collect seeds, which will be worth points at the end of the game, in order to provide you with points based on the dominant tile color, but you're going to need these seeds in order to unravel the tiles of the other color and remove them from the board. Now, each player is currently out on this board with 2 druids. They have an Eldritch Druid, or Eldred Druid, which is this larger token with a little star on it, and then they have just a regular Druid out on the board that is a smaller piece. And they all start on a tile which is called a Haven tile. You can tell they're Havens because they have this green background, and they also have a little icon on them showing that they're Havens. But if there's only one Haven in tile, it's the only type of tile that can't be removed from play because it's where you're going to bring all of your new druids into play, and there has to be at least one place to bring it in. So you'll always start with one of each different tile, and you'll always start with them out on the board, and everyone will always start with 2 druids on the board. On your turn in this game, you are going to be using these druids in order to accomplish actions, and by using them, you're going to be flipping them over or exhausting them in order to take some type of action. Those actions will all be laid out on this friendly little player sheet that you have over here. But the first thing I'd like to talk about from this player sheet is that the colors in this game are kind of in a rock, paper, scissors type of arrangement. So yellow is beating red, red is beating blue, blue is beating yellow, and around in the circle. So one always loses to one and wins against the other one. And this will be important for collecting seeds and using those seeds to unravel the various sites on the board. Now, the taking of actions in the game is always related to flipping over one of your druids and exhausting them. So on your turn, you're basically going to get a number of actions equal to the number of druids you have, plus anything else that you can manipulate out on the board. So we'll see that each of these tiles has some type of action related to it, allowing us to flip over a druid and do something. For example, this one says that I can flip over a druid to refresh a different druid. This may be important because I may have moved one of my druids somewhere else, allowing me to refresh them and use them again for that ability. It also says that it's a Haven, and it can't be unraveled if it's the only one in play. Another thing you can do instead of activating a tile is flip over one of your druids to move them from one tile to another. You may want to do this as some tiles have different abilities, and other tiles will have abilities just for being on them at the start of your turn. We'll see a little bit more of that in a little bit. So, if I wanted to move a druid from one tile to the other, I can exhaust him and move him over. Now, this also has an interesting interaction here. What this allows me to do is that my druids are all interconnected. That means that this druid, despite being on Gru's Refuge, has the ability of any tile that any of my druids are on. So this druid happens to be on Eye of the Forest, but my Eldred druid can use the ability of this tile because I have a druid there. you'll see that the ability on this tile says move the Invoking Eldritch to any site. That means I could flip this guy over and use this ability to move this guy anywhere on the board. Now, I wouldn't need to do this early in the game, but as the board expands, you'll see more reason to move a guy farther and use this ability to do so. So having a strong network of druids on the board will allow you to take different actions that are inhabited by your different druids in the layout. So far we've seen that you can activate a tile, and you can use a druid to activate a different tile, where you have a different druid, whether he's active or not. You can also move your druids by flipping them over. The next thing you can do is summon more druids. So you'll note that we have 2 on the board, but I have 3 that are off the board here. By flipping over any one of my druids that's not been activated so far or exhausted, I can bring a new druid into play on a haven. That would be any haven on the board. So I have a haven here, I can place a new druid, but he'll come in activated and won't be able to be used until next round. And you'll only get to reactivate a certain number of your druids, typically 3 at the start of a round, so that you can use them for the current round. So even if you've used 4, you can only reactivate 3 that round, and you may use those 3 or use a portion of those 3 in order to take actions and maybe activate more in the next round. The last type of things, or actually there's 2 more, the next type of thing you can do is explore a new tile, and that's how you're going to expand the board. Exploring a new tile can be done once per turn and is granted to you by this little placard that you have. This is what gives you an explore ability, so everyone will get 1 per round, unless a tile out on the board gives you another way to take an explore action. When you use your explore, you're going to flip this over, and it's going to allow you to use one of your non-exhausted druids to explore a new tile. In doing so, you're going to draw a tile from the giant bag of tiles, and you're going to explore it out onto the board adjacent to where your druid is starting from. You'll see that the tiles are double-sided, so one side of this tile is yellow, while the other side of the tile is red. If I've decided that I would like yellow to be the dominant color by the end of the game, I would likely want to place this yellow side up. But I'd also want to pay attention to the abilities of both sides of these tiles. So if we look at this side of this tile, the yellow side, it says that there's an ability, if I have one of my druids here during the refresh phase, which is what this little hourglass icon means, I would be able to refresh 4 of my druids instead of 3. That means that if I had 4 exhausted druids on the board, I'd be able to flip them back over to their unexhausted side and use them for the next round. The other side here has an activation ability, so if I have a druid on here, I can use any of my unexhausted druids to take this ability, saying I can move one of my exhausted druids up to 2 hexes. So this would allow me to move somebody who's already been used 2 hexes, and usually those people aren't moving. When I place this out on the board, I'm going to use the druid that explored to move to that tile. And when I do so, I'm going to get to pick up one of the seeds of that color. So I pick up a yellow seed and would place it in my player area. That is my only exploration for the round, and you'll see the flip side of these tiles say you may not explore anymore. So unless you find a way out on the tiles of the board to activate for an explore action, you'll be doing 1 explore per turn. Now, the major point of exploring new areas and collecting these seeds is to be able to take the Unravel action. And this Unravel action will allow you to destroy tiles that are out on the board to get points for the end of the game, also shifting the balance of the various different colors that are out here on the board. So, of course, the board would progress and we'd put more tiles out. You would gain and lose druids, and we'll see how you lose druids in just a moment. But for the most part, you're going to be trying to collect seeds and inhabit tiles that are of a specific color. So let's say that we have another druid out for a future turn, and we are deciding to try and unravel let's go with a blue tile. No, we want to unravel a red tile. So we're going to try and unravel a red tile, and we've managed to get one of our druids there. Perhaps somebody else has moved one of their druids there as well. What we can do here is we need to spend a number of seeds or occupy a number of sites equal to 3 in order to unravel a red tile. You can actually see this chart here, so yellow beats red, and down here it says that you need 3 seeds in order to unravel a red tile. Well, we don't have 3 seeds, we have 1 seed. However, every site that one of our druid occupies that matches the color of what we're trying to accomplish, so we need 3 yellow, will count for 1. So in this case, 1, 2 we have here, and we have 1 over here. Now that we're on this red site, we can spend our 1 seed plus the 2 sites that we occupy in order to unravel this site by using our druid. When we do so, it's going to completely destroy this site, and it will take the activating druid or the exhausting druid with it, removing him from the board. This site will be removed, and it can only be removed because it doesn't break the board up, and it's not the last haven. But it will be removed, and any druids that are currently on it are going to be moved to a haven. You get to choose which haven. They'll get sent back. They're not destroyed, but this tile will be moved into my player area and will count for end of game points if it's not the dominant type of color out on the board. So right now yellow is dominant, blue is in second, and red is not present at all. In this case, this is how you're trying to collect points. You're trying to unravel tiles, you're trying to shift the balance of colors on the board, and you're trying to collect seeds that will match the dominant color by the end of the game. Currently, yellow. So exploring more yellow tiles and making more yellow out on the board would be beneficial at this point if you're trying to make yellow dominant, and you would want to collect yellow seeds, but red and blue tiles by unraveling them. Now, of course, once one player has exhausted all of their druids and taken all of their possible actions with exploring, you would pass the turn to the next player, who would likewise take their turn by moving their druids or summoning more druids, exploring tiles out on the board to shift the balance of various tiles. And some of these various different abilities out here will either allow you to manipulate the position of tiles. For example, this one here lets you discard a seed and move an unlocked tile, which is just a tile that doesn't break up the board. Move an unlocked tile to any other space on the board. So you can pick, for example, discarding a blue seed will allow you to move a blue tile anywhere else out on the board as long as it's not a locked tile. Various other ones may allow you to switch two tiles or relocate druids or refresh druids or summon more druids or whatever the case may be. But various abilities will come out onto this board, allowing you to shift the dynamic and position of tiles or the abilities of druids. You'll keep on in this manner until all of the tiles from this bag have been pulled and placed out onto the board. And of course, tiles will be destroyed as the game goes on, and they'll relocate, and you'll get more and fewer druids as things progress. But once these tiles are gone, you're going to go ahead and finish the game, and you're going to check and see what the dominant tile color out is on the board. So if yellow were dominant at the end of the game, we'll just say there's more yellow tiles than anything else, you're going to go ahead and you're going to score points based on your unraveled tiles. In the case of yellow being dominant, unraveled yellow tiles will be worth nothing, but unraveled blue and unraveled red tiles will be worth 2 points apiece. On the opposite, seeds matching the dominant color, in this case yellow, are worth 1 point apiece, while blue and red seeds will be worth nothing. In the case of a 4-player game, the team that has the most points between their blue and red tiles and their yellow seeds would be the winner. But if a different color were dominant, of course that would shift the value of all of the different tiles. For example, blue being dominant would make yellow and red worth points, while blue seeds would be worth 1 apiece. In this manner, in the 2-player game, the player with the most points, or in the 4-player game, the team with the most points will be the winner. And there you have it. That is Lagoon, Land of the Druids. Now, the first time I played this game, I have to be honest, I hated it. Hated it, hated it, hated it, hated it. I never wanted to see it again. I played it 3-player, and I think that was my problem. The 3-player game, despite having the exact same rules as the 2- and 4-player versions of the game, doesn't balance well in my opinion. I just don't like the feel of it. I think I ended up in a scenario where 2 of the players were trying to balance the board towards one color, and I had acted first trying to balance the board in a different direction. And while you can change your direction, 2 players actively unraveling the tiles of the colors that you're trying to work for makes it very, very difficult to work against that. And so it kind of becomes a 2-on-1 scenario that devolves a little bit. And I'm not saying this would happen every time with the 3-player game, but as with many, many 3-player games, it does tend to eliminate one player from the running rather quickly, in my opinion. Now, after playing with 2 and 4, I find that this is not nearly as much of a problem. It's either a 1-on-1 or a 2-on-2 scenario with singles or teams, and it balances out much better. I actually find that it's much easier to shift from one color to another if you don't like the way things are going, and that the points end up rather tight in the end of the game. Either because you've got a nice combination of tiles that have been unraveled, and even if you're unraveling the wrong color for a little while, you may be unraveling another color that will contribute to points. Also, sometimes picking up seeds can be a great way to get points throughout the game, so you may have seeds that you've picked up throughout the game from exploring that end up to be useful because you haven't used them for unraveling. So, that is a nice balancing factor and really kind of turned my opinion of the game around. There have been criticisms that the abilities on the tiles aren't exciting, that they're kind of abstract, and I won't argue against the fact that they're not terribly exciting abilities, thematically speaking. They're relatively generic, but I think that they work well in terms of giving you things to think about. How can I activate this druid on the other side of the board if I need to activate him to move him? Well, maybe there's an ability I can use in order to get him over to the other side of the board without activating him. Or maybe I can reactivate him, or maybe I can move the tile he's on. Perhaps I just need to use a druid here to activate ability across the board because they're all interconnected in their web of power, whatever it happens to be. There's a lot of thinking going on how to best optimize your turn. So, as a 3-player game, I'm never going to touch it again. As a 2 or 4-player game, I think it's earned its place in my collection. As an abstract, thematically, I'm not too worried about it, but the art is beautiful as well. So it's both beautiful and fun to play at 2 or 4. And if that sounds good to you, definitely suggest checking it out. That's Lagoon, Land of the Druids from 3 Hairs Games.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.